What's up, YouTube? So I've been waiting a long time to have this experience, okay? And it happened today, okay? So I'm at work. It's a small shop up in Colorado, right? And this kid walks in, 21, 24, who knows, right? Young kid, okay? He walks in and he starts patting my dog Noah, which that's standard for people. So he's petting Noah. And then he stands up and he looks at me and he says, I was abducted by gray aliens when I was 14, and I felt compelled to come into this store and talk to you. I said, show me 3 dots, indentations in the shape of a triangle on your skin, right? Dude comes around a little bit around the counter, pulls down his sock, and there it is. Boom, boom, boom. And I go, okay, what happened? He says, I was 14. I was out with some friends. We were hiking. On the way back, they kind of lost time, but I have a distinct memory of the first part of it, okay? That they were the small gray aliens, and they took him, and there was like some sort of, transfer into this ship, okay, right? Whatever, like they do. They're capable of defragging matter and having people go through windows and walls and stuff like that. They're not defragging people, I don't think, but they're defragging the frequency of a barrier. But he mentioned that, right? And he said he doesn't remember much else, but he knows it happened, okay? And so I go, okay, let me tell you what you're thinking. You think that they were the bad ones, but you think that there are good ones also, because this is the program, right? You think there's good ones also. And then I said, have you heard of good cop, bad cop, okay? They're both after you, but they're going to use this manipulation on you, right? So then, and the reason he was compelled to come in and talk to me is because I've been studying this phenomena since 1984, right? When I was at Temple University, and my next door neighbor was Professor Dr. Jacob, who is like top of the heap of research on the subject, right? I used to talk to the guy about it. I was into this stuff when I was like 17, 16. I was reading books on the beach about UFOs, whatever. I didn't know that, right? But Dr. Jacob, he's put over 120 people in hypnotic states and regressed them. As like this kid said, he only remembers that part. He doesn't remember what happened on the ship, okay? Well, Jacob regresses them into that experience, and he comes to the same conclusion as Harvard professor John Mack, died at 64 recently, way too young, right? And Jacques Vallée, who was that French guy in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, French professor. They all come to the same conclusion through data, okay? When you regress 120 people, you get data. So Jacob, Mac, Valet, tons of others, right? This isn't main. It's never gonna hit mainstream. You gotta dig and dig and dig to get this, okay? But I happen to be like neighbors with this guy, so I would talk to him about it way back, and I never stopped researching it, okay? So this is what he found out. Okay, so like in the 40s, 50s is when the abduction thing sort of blew up, okay? People like to say that it was the guy from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory who did the Babylon working ritual in the desert, and that sort of opened a portal. But no, man, this goes all the way back. This is ancient, okay? It wasn't that, but it did proliferate around that time, okay? So in the hypnosis, the people, around the 50s, women and men were saying, they were only saying that this is what was happening at that time. That there was like something sexual about it, lots of poking and prodding, okay? But there was something sexual, and the men were forced to, you know what, and they took the, you know what, the seed, right? They took that seed, and the women, they were taking the eggs, right? And that's what they were reporting under hypnosis. Now the 60s come along, and now the women are reporting that they're like getting pregnant. Literally, they go to the obstetrician, right? They're pregnant, right? They go back 2 months later. They're not pregnant anymore. But there was no loss of the child. There was no miscarriage, nothing. It's gone, right? They were abducted, and the child was taken out, okay? Which ties directly into cattle mutilation, which goes back forever, thousands. There's 20 million people claiming they were abducted. 20 million, okay? That's a lot. That's a lot. And there are reports, is probably 20,000, 30,000 reports of farmers or whatever, because it goes back 50 years, saying, hey, it came out, the cow's sitting there, dead, zero blood, okay? The jaw kind of cored out, and the sexual organs literally cored out with like a laser technology that didn't leave, you know, didn't leave a scar, right? Just, so they take out the sexual organs, they take out the blood. Who knows what they're doing with the part of the jaw. But fast forward to now, and our science says, oh, guess what? We can make fake wombs. And with cow hemoglobin, we can create the solution to grow babies in.
These videos, shared by researchers from the University of Michigan and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, show what the technology looks like. The artificial wombs may include a bag with synthetic amniotic fluid and tubes connected to the umbilical cord.
All right, that's like a 1-to-1 ratio, the probabilities and the statistics to make that happen. So clearly, based on the data, 30,000-foot view, these things, and the farmers are like, yeah, I watched the cow like just rise up off the field, okay, in a beam, and then drop down, and boom, it had this, you know, it was done. It was like no more blood, no more hemoglobin, okay, and then no footprints around it, and this is like, look at it. It happens across like the middle parallel of the country for some reason, right? But that's part of the data, right? And so I'm gonna go back a little bit. I'm telling the kid this story. Somehow I managed to fit it in like 20 minutes and still like deal with like working there. But so I tell him, have you heard of Aleister Crowley? He's heard of Aleister Crowley. I said, okay, he's a cultist. He called himself the most wicked man on earth. He thought he was the 666 beast, whatever. He was just an occult clown. But he channeled this character that called himself Lamb, and the dude looks like a small gray, right? And Lamb said, he said, today we come. This is like in the 40s. Today we come as demons and angels. But in the future, we will present, we will manifest, we will come, we will masquerade as something else. Because what they've done all through time, and I'm eventually going to go back 6,000 years, but as they've done all through time, is they work within the cultural reality at the time that the controllers are programming us to. Because way back, there was tons of technology. Halfway back, there was tons of technology. And then they put us in this, like, the reset shit where it was like horses and buggies. And then now we're back to, like, technology. So, in the 50s, they were saying, well, Lamb back then, in the 40s, were coming as demons and angels. And, you know, succubus, incubus, and all those type of things. And then they said, in the 50s, these alien abduction experiences would say that we're from Venus and Mars. Like, you remember this. Like, if you're into it a little, you remember that they were from Venus and Mars. But as our cultural conditioning and programming and manipulation came out, and NASA said there's no life and it would be impossible for life to be on Venus for sure. Mars, they send their little helicopters up and there's nothing there, right? So it's like, suddenly, the masqueraders, the demonic abduction people are like, oh, suddenly they're Pleiadians or they're Andromedans, but they're from galaxies. They've crossed galaxies to get here, okay? A whole new paradigm, a whole new narrative. And then that just like flows right into this galactic federation, and then they do their best to manipulate these people they abduct, but they're like, you're a star seed.
This is a channel message from the Council of Light, the Council of Creation, specifically from a Syrian elder. At this time, many of our crafts are revealing themselves to the public. If you have seen a craft in the skies, if you have seen a craft at all, it is because we chose you to see. We are slowly drip feeding into the consciousness of humanity that we have always been here. We have never left.
Like, you're gonna heal the earth and stuff. And it's like, good cop, bad cop. And it's like, yo, if there's a good cop involved in this garbage narrative, like, what are you waiting for? We already know that your, like, interdimensional ships can do 4,000 miles an hour right-hand turns, you know? We already know that you have some sort of spiritual interdimensional technology, right? We know that you can you can transfer people through matter, okay? What are you waiting for? If you're so good, come here and heal us. Come here and, like, zap Moderna and zap Pfizer and zap those guys and just heal everybody. You're so nice. You got a good side. Heal everybody. Give us some free energy. Give me a freaking flying car. Give me a flying railway that gets me from here to the ski resort near here. Because I would love to get up at 8:30 and be, like, in powder at by 9. By 9, all right? If you're listening, you all wonderful, super tall, gray Nordics with your blue eyes and your blonde hair, how about fixing up my situation? I'm trying to get to the mountain quicker. Anyhow, that's really all I would ask for at this time. And now it's the 1960s and the alien abduction in the 70s. Now the women are claiming that they're being abducted and they're being presented with children, right? That they know are theirs. Remember? Because they had the babies went missing because they get abducted, like, constantly, right? But they don't remember it. And you get screen memories. They're capable of putting screen memories into people. All right, so they're there to sort of nurture them and stuff, because that's part of a developmental process of a part human, part hybrid. Definite human. And there's a human side to these hybrids. And so the hybrids over time, 70s, 80s, 90s, start looking more and more human. And they're also now starting to be told, teach them how to use ATMs, teach them how to drive cars, teach them how to get jobs and do this stuff, right? So are these hybrids here now running around? I don't know. I've heard reports that, like, people come into contact with people that are just, like, kind of there but not really there. Funny, so maybe based on the narrative, it sounds like there's some here. And okay, now we go all the way back. So I hit him with that. Now I'm going to say, look, I'm going to take you back all the way to Genesis 6. Because, of course, I'm going to hit him with the Bible. That's why he was compelled to come in. Because I'm supposed to tell him this story. All right, so I take him back. I take him back to Genesis 6. I take him back to ancient history, right? the sons of God, these entities from the first estate, these higher entities, came down and did a hybrid program with the earth women. As Genesis 6 says, like, you know, quote, sons of God saw the daughters of man were fair. Each of them came down and took one for a wife, and were born unto them the Nephilim, the mighty men, and the giants, okay? So the Nephilim are like, apparently like these elongated skull dudes. Where do we find these elongated skulls with massive domes, right? Brain cavities, right? Domes. And what do you got in a brain? You've got a field of energy. Like, these things are powerful. And they were the ones who ran these pyramid cultures all over the earth, pre-Jesus, basically from Babylon to Jesus. These pyramid cultures, and what did they do? They sacrificed children. What does the Bible talk about? Sacrificing children to Baal, right? And all this shit. Don't let your kid pass through the fire. Like, same, it's that story, okay? So, I explain in the Greek mythology, the gods came down and took earth wives and were born unto them half gods, okay? These things, right? Or whatever, these giants or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah. The kid was like, yeah, I know about the giants. I know about the giants existed. I'm like, yeah. He said they hid the bones and stuff. They found them and hid the bones. He knew a little bit about that for some reason, because he didn't know much, man. He didn't know much. He just kind of sat quietly and listened. And then we have the Anunnaki and the Gnostic tradition, which actually Sumerian, which actually they're Sumerians. Let me just like digress. They're like, oh yeah, we came up with Noah. They didn't come up with Noah. Why is Noah important? He was generationally pure. Like, the guy was getting drunk and stuff. It's not that he was pure like that. What it means is he was unblemished. His blood was unblemished. And this hybrid program had become so crazy between Adam, Cain, the fallen Anunnaki, angels, gods that came down, had gotten so crazy that the creator of this realm was like, we're flooding it. And modern science says the deluge happened, okay? The top of the Himalayas is all kinds of seashells. Right? Waters rose to the top, all right? And washed out everything. There's 350 myths in different cultures of a Noah character. And it came before the Gilgamesh and that Sumerian stuff, all right? So, because they like, one of the deceptions is to tell you the Sumerian myths of Enki and Enlil and all that is where the Adam and Eve came from. And that's just not true. Okay, just have to, there's a lot of people out there trying to deceive you. And you have to say, debunk this. Like, I mean, everything I ever came across, the first thing I did was show me information against this. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying anything. Don't buy anything I say. Look into it. Problem is they're washing everything now. The golden age of information was the last 10 years on the internet. Anyhow, Anunnaki, right? And so then I said, I explained the Old Testament, how like so-and-so begot so-and-so begot so-and-so, and then Noah had to get like the generationally, the genetically pure, unblemished group, and then repopulate with clean. Although yet, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be after, right? Because there was another incursion after. There were like 3 incursions. Okay, there were 3 incursions, but I guess who's the great guy to check out on this? Man, I'll think of it by the end of this. Yeah. So I explained to him that that's what the Old Testament's about. Is this need to get to Jesus, a pure blood, okay? A pure blood who was going to be sinless and therefore incredibly powerful, okay, as a sacrificial blood sacrifice. I mean, The dark side just mimics it all with their sacrifices. And that's why pyramid cultures were like, sacrifice the virgin, you know, because it was the purest blood. Purest blood has the most power. That's why you get the God-man, Jesus, and his sacrifice. I'm telling the kids about this, if you just follow that and hook into that, you will get that scalar waves, you will get that explosion out of time and space. You hook into it, it can heal you, and it can change you, and if you're willing to let it, all right? So then, I explained to him parables, and the wheat and tare, the parable of the wheat and tares, okay? And that explains all of this, okay? So Jesus says to the people, always in parables, because it is as the Bible said, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it's the duty of kings to figure it out, okay? That's our job, is to figure this out. Like, you don't get the answers to a test. We're here to get an A. We're here to get to the other side. Like, you know the parable about the boat? I'm going to digress right here. But you know the parable about the boat and Jesus, and like Peter's like walking on water because Jesus is walking. He says, come on, Peter, come out to me. And he walks on water and he loses faith and he starts sinking. And Jesus reaches out and pulls him up, okay? That's like not even what the story is. That's Matthew's version. In Mark, what happens is Jesus says, hey, you guys, I'm going to meet you on the other side, okay? I'll be over there, and you guys can go there, okay? That's the mission. That's the mission. Our mission is to get to the other side. But when the storm hit, it says that Jesus was walking by the boat. He was walking by the boat. And then he noticed that they were freaking out, okay? He noticed they were freaking out. And so he stopped. And then he did all that stuff. And that's the parables. The deeper level of that parable is we're supposed to make it to the other side. But if we do freak out, halfway there, Jesus will come to us if we sincerely ask. God, present yourself. Jesus, present yourself. Come, I'm ready. I'm ready to do anything, to walk on this water. Like the full faith. You have that full faith. That's what that parable's about. So anyhow, the wheat and tares has another level to it, but Jesus explains that perfectly, right? So he says, the kingdom of heaven, the earth is like a farmer, okay? It's like a farmer, and he's growing wheat. But in the middle of the night, an intruder comes in, and he plants tares amongst the wheat. And now wheat and tares look almost exactly alike. And like, if you look, there's a bunch of stuff about the behavior of a tare compared to a wheat. Like, at the end of its life, a wheat will bow down. The tare will stand up proud and defiant, right? Proud and defiant. The tare bows, the wheat bows down. But anyhow, Jesus says, and so the farmer comes, the farmer's like, the guys come and say, what are we supposed to do about this? There's all kinds of tares amongst the wheat. Okay, here we go. Hybrids amongst us. That's the connection. The hybrid line, the Old Testament, right? It was, what can we do? The dark side is the devil, Apollyon, that old serpent, Satan, call him what you want, man. His whole mission there in the Old Testament is, how do we stop this bloodline from reaching to Jesus, right? It even got to the point where the Pharaoh was like, kill all the kids. It even got to the point where Herod was like, kill all the kids. You know, the wise men just saw the constellations, and they knew revelations, right? And they were like, yo, it's coming. Kid's coming. Jesus is coming, about to be born. Herod's like, kill all the kids, right? So that it was mess with it was try to mess with the bloodline, to pollute it, and then it was just panic mode, kill him, okay? Kill that thing. that connection. But yeah, couldn't pull it off because that's not part of the show. We're in like a movie. We're in like a thing that we're like, that enables us to, you know, it's not easy. It's like iron sharpens iron. We're here to like tough it out and like figure this out, and then eventually bring ourselves to the Creator completely, psychologically, spiritually, and physically on our knees and say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to give it all up. Let's connect. And that's the name of the game. Okay, so then Jesus says that, and he goes back after that parable to the public. He goes back to the house with his disciples, right? And they go like, dude, like with the whole thing with the like parables, like, can you just explain? Just tell us straight up. What are you talking about? And he's like, I'll tell you. The wheat are the children of the Creator. The tares are the children of the devil. They will be allowed to grow together until the end of time, and the angels will come down and harvest them and gather up the wheat and bring it into the barn into heaven, and gather up the tares and burn them. And that's what he said. And he said that I skipped that, but in the parable, that's what the landowner, you know, the farmer told his workers. Just hold up, let them grow together, gather up the wheat, put it in my barn, gather up the tares and burn them, okay? But actually when he says the angels come down, he says gather up the tares and put them in the lake of fire. A little bit more specific. So it's not a parable at that point. I was telling my buddy about this experience I just saw. And he says, he goes, what do you think? You're like, some kind of like, you know, whatever. I said, no, I'm nothing, honestly. I said, you know, just because I was capable of telling this kid, like, the whole story of the alien hybrid abduction program, it goes all the way back and to the present, means nothing about my salvation, okay? Because as it says in the Bible, that many will come to Jesus when they move on to that next level, right? And they'll say, hey, I cast out demons in your name. I healed people in your name, right? I did this stuff in your name. And Jesus is going to say, hey, begone, I didn't know you. And the guy goes, my buddy goes, that's crazy. I don't read the Bible much, but I read it today. And I read that. Statistical probabilities, there's a lot in the Bible. You can get to that. And that's what he read. He said, and he quoted it. He said, Lord, Lord, I've done this in your name. And he says, begone, I never knew you. I never knew you. So it's like, you can know as much as you want and understand it. But man, if you're not born again of like water and spirit, right? And you don't give it all up, like I don't know. It sounds kind of risky. So, all right. So the kid's like, whoa. And he just says, thank you. And he leaves. And that's that. Like, that whole experience was done. Now, I digressed a little bit here. But I put it into... I also told him this. Okay, I said, look, you know that the elite that run the world don't have your best interest in mind. I mean, they're spraying us with chemicals. They're putting chemicals in our food. As much as they possibly can, right? And they hate Jesus, okay? And there's proof of it in every single movie you watch, and you'll see now. They will take his name in vain, okay? They will use it as a curse word, an explanation word, whatever, but they will say JC in every movie, right? They will claim that the Bible and Jesus is just this judgmental, awful, evil thing, right? Judgmental, right? They'll never talk about Muhammad. They'll never talk about Vishnu. They'll never talk about Krishna. They'll never talk about Buddha, right? In a bad way, ever. Meanwhile, I mean, you know, Muhammad, Islam, I mean, they're throwing people off buildings, right? Like, I don't really think that your average, like, fake church or your average Jesus follower is like, hey, let's be this judgmental, let's throw people off buildings. Like, no. So that's obvious, man. They hate Jesus. Everything else is cool, okay? The elite aren't your friends. The enemy of your enemy is your friend. Their enemy is Jesus, right? I kind of left him with that one. And I'll leave you with that one. Enemy of your enemy is your friend. What do you got to lose? Throw in with Jesus. All right, peace, y'all.